The following podcast is brought to you on behalf of the Saracen Supporters Association and is not an official product of Saracens Limited. Content provided voluntarily by our guests and contributors are of their own opinion, which may change over time and should not be taken as fact, particularly as the podcast hosts are regularly talking drivel anyway. If you've got some drivel of your own you'd like to share, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at fezcast_SSA. You can search Facebook for the Fezcast, or you can email fezcast.ssa@outlook.com.
You're listening to the Fezcast.
Well, welcome everyone to the next edition of the Fezcast. Matt in the hot seat again today. Jez is finally having a week off, so less of his ranting and more of my aimless drivel. So see how this goes. But I've got Sam Norris and Barry Payne with me today. How are you guys? You all right?
All good, thanks, mate. All good.
Yeah, all good here as well. Bit of cracking weekend. Obviously, some great results and some very good rugby. Even if I did miss our game at the weekend, unfortunately.
That was not a game to miss. That was not a game to miss.
Yeah, we were just talking off air, and I said I probably didn't pick a very good weekend. It's one of those things that you sign up for in February, March. You go, yeah, great, I'll be along for that. And then when the fixtures come out, you look at it, and you go, bugger.
Well, yeah, at least you managed to catch the highlights, though, of which there were many. So that's so we'll get on to that in a bit. But first, I mean, we last week, Jez and the guys on the show, obviously, everyone has been talking about the situation down at Worcester, and the situation totally fluid. It all kicked off after we recorded, really. So this is the first time we're really getting together and talking about the situation there now that they have gone into administration and have been suspended from the league. But I'm sure I speak for both of you. Real commiserations to everyone there. We really hope that the team can sort themselves out. It's really not a good situation down there, is it, Sam?
No, and you know what? It's funny. So Worcester have almost kind of become my second team anyway, because where I've moved to in the country, and they're sort of the local side to where my wife grew up and stuff like that. So it would always be, you talk about, looking at the fixtures and picking out certain games. Worcester away was always a game that I picked out because it was a local game. Although theoretically Coventry is slightly closer to us, I think I prefer to go to Worcester than Coventry. And do you know what? You go to certain away grounds, of which I've been to many, and you get a feel for different fans. And the Worcester fans were always, number one, they weren't arses, if we're allowed to say that word on the podcast. They were good people, very knowledgeable. And, the beer was always good. The food's decent. It's a cracking ground, good atmosphere. So as much as it's, obviously I feel, as everyone does, for all the fans and everyone involved in the club, but from a personal perspective as well, it's a fixture that's now missing from the fixture list that I'm sad to see go, because it's a great place to go and watch rugby. And they always put out a good fight against us and everyone else, even if they do fall on the wrong side of them more recently. But yeah, a real loss to the league, and I really, really hope that they can find a way of making it work. Although, as we've already mentioned off air, we'll talk about it in a bit, some people clearly don't see that happening. But I really, really hope they do. And even if they have to come up the leagues again, we just have to get rugby being played at six ways again, and hopefully see them rise back up to the Premiership.
Yeah, only echo that. That's what we really want. We in an ideal world, we would want it sorted out very quickly, then back in this season and managing to complete this season, and then go on from there. But as we said, it looks from the outside, it looks like a right mess. Yeah.
It does, we have to say it does look pretty bleak for them. I mean, you can see the vultures circling with some of their players as well that are trying to be picked up from places left, right and centre, which is fair because they still want to be playing rugby. There's a few bits coming out today that all of those players, their medical insurance has now been suspended, so they're at risk if they do play. And we saw the situation. I mean, it's just one further nail in the coffin with the owners of Worcester. I completely forgot really the situation with Michael Fatialofa, who playing against us a couple of seasons ago, unfortunately right in front of me, picked up a horrific injury and was treated awfully by someone that we didn't know at the time at Worcester. Things were very strange, and Saracens ended up paying some of his bills by the sound of it, but turns out it was the Worcester owners, I think, that didn't do particularly well out of that situation. But as you kind of alluded to there, it's hard to see what's going to happen over the next few weeks and the next few months. However, I think from our side, we kind of think that it's not really our place to be talking about it in that way. Whereas for some people, they seem to have taken the opportunity to stick their oar in where it's not really relevant. And Rob Baxter's comments recently haven't earned him too many fans. I've not made any secret that I don't particularly like him, other than his Barnet during COVID. That was something special. But the comments that he's made about Worcester recently, saying that he can't see them coming back into the league, saying that the league needs to get smaller, it's really poor timing, I think, in my eyes. And I think for someone that's risen through the leagues with Exeter, he knows how the game's been played lower down. He of all people should really be appreciating where teams are coming from when they're having to grow from small places like Worcester. They've punched above their weight in the league and things. You think of all people, he might actually have a bit of sympathy and a bit of decorum about the situation, but he's mouthed off a bit in my eyes. I'm not particularly pleased with his comments, but I know I'm probably a little bit extreme in that case. What do you think, guys?
I'm going to go into bat for the other side here a little bit. I'm sure he's not gone rushing off to the BBC and said, "I desperately want to tell you what should happen with Worcester Warriors and what should happen with the Premiership." He's no doubt been asked the questions, and looking at what he's actually said, I don't think there's an awful lot in there that he's particularly wrong about. It does look a mess, as we've just said. I suspect it won't be sorted out very quickly, and the longer it goes on, the less likely they are to be able to physically fit the missing fixtures back into the calendar, and that's going to give everyone an issue. Perhaps the only thing that you could really take issue with is Baxter's comments is that the timing of the league needs to get smaller. Comment is unfortunate, to say the least. But other than that, I mean, he's hinting at insider knowledge, if you like, and I'm sure that there are plenty of stories going around within the rugby family, and obviously all the owners talk to each other and all the various staffs at the various clubs. It sounds ominous from what he's saying, and I think he's probably got a point that it's not going to be fixed very quickly, and and that is going to give everyone a problem.
Do you know, I think I guess maybe sit a little bit in between the two, which is that I think Barry's right in what he says, that some of the things that Rob said, you can't necessarily argue against. But the thing that I think we should be actually mentioning, and this I guess takes it back to giving it a bit of a Saracens slant, is tell me the last time you got Mark McCall on BBC News or whatever talking about other rugby clubs. Never happens. Maritoji, Owen Farrell, they're being talked to by the press. They don't mention it. They don't bring it up. Then suddenly, but then we get the salary cap scenario. We've got Danny Kerr piping up. We've got Rob Baxter piping up. We've got other members of the team down at Exeter piping up. Last season, before we played Harlequins in the semi-final, we had Marla piping up about our plastic pitch and how much they hated us. There's no place for it in rugby. Just as a club, and again, this is why I think we support the greatest club in the world, because not only are we bloody brilliant on the pitch, as we proved on Saturday, but how good are we off it as well? We conduct ourselves in such a good manner. And, you don't get Mark McCall talking to the BBC about Worcester because it's not his place to do so. And I guarantee if the BBC ask, which they probably don't because they know they're going to get this answer, he'll say, happy to talk to you about Saracens, but really it's not my place to talk to you about Worcester. And that's what would happen.
I like to think Mark McCall in interviews is boring. He's very, very boring. And I don't mind that at all. Yeah, and to be honest, Barry, I do agree with you, to be honest. What Rob Baxter said probably isn't wrong. And that's the really unfortunate thing of it. But there's a very cynical part of me that thinks he's unsettling some of the players. He's unsettling the situation, and he can see some gain for himself and Exeter in that. But, I know nothing of the situation as a whole, and Rob Baxter probably does know more than me. But I think, most other people in rugby, as they have done, when they've been asked about it, they've played it with a very straight bat and not given the press anything. But I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to us. Let's talk about us. We're quite selfish. But first, let's talk about the less good result of the week, which was our midweek cup fixture against Harlequins. I always go into these thinking the result doesn't matter, to be honest. But it was a fairly poor result. We did concede a lot of points very, very quickly. But with a very, very young team out. Obviously, we've not actually been able to see an awful lot of the game. There's only very, very brief highlights. But Sam, have you caught those, and did anything in particular stand out for you?
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I used to think when it comes to the cup, I kind of agree with you. You know, it's the result doesn't matter. But actually, do you know what? I've thought more and more, particularly maybe over the last couple of seasons, that actually they do, because I think it starts to breed a winning mentality amongst the youngsters. And actually, I think, you know, if it wasn't for the salary cap and if we could have larger squads, it would probably benefit them to not have to run out as an academy side and actually, you know, get a few, you know, of the older lads in there to help. You know, back in the day when, you know, we had like Callum Clark sort of captaining the side and things like that, it's good to have those types of people involved. You know, Manu Vunipola, you know, I've never made any secret of the fact that I don't think he's good enough to be in the position that he's in, and I'd much rather have someone else in that sort of secondary 10 jersey. But he was captain on Tuesday night and he's got very little first team experience. And so it doesn't surprise me that when the results don't necessarily go our way, and I know Quinn's had a very, you know, young side out as well, but, you know, the competition's meant to be there for development. And how much are the youngsters developing when they're just playing with the guys that they would play in the academy with? We need to be using these in a slightly different way, I think. And well, I know we can't because of the size of the squads now, but it would be so much better for development of the kids if we could, you know, get them, you know, a few of the sort of players that play. I know we had a couple, you know, in the front row, but you know, we go almost back to the previous conversation about the league and how that works. What about the cup? Maybe we should be looking at the cup in a slightly different way and saying, well, maybe the championship clubs should be part of this as well. And we should make it more of like the old Tetley's Bitter Cup back in the day. And you know, clubs from all over the country could enter, make it more like an FA Cup. And I think that would be great. The Premiership teams are still going to put weakened sides in. But, you know, the likes of Jersey and Ampthill get to play against Premiership teams on the reg, which can only be good for the game as well. And I think playing against big lads, first team players, will be good for the youngsters as well, because they get to play almost like first team rugby, basically. And I've sort of rambled on a little bit about that. I'm not really talking about the game at all, but that's my sort of 2p's worth on that anyway.
But I mean, you're right, what you say, and it's kind of where I've been going with this. Is that I'm not too fussed on the game itself. It's I was going to say off pitch, that's a bit of a lie, but it is that the bigger picture of what these Prem Cup games are about, and especially this season when they're being played midweek rather than at the weekend. So anyone that is going to be in and around the 23 at the weekend just isn't going to play that midweek match. So the teams are probably weaker now than they would be. I mean, we've got a cup game against Leicester that we are playing at the weekend, and I would imagine that the side is going to be a little bit stronger for that. But yeah, when you're playing two games 2 or 3 days apart, or in what would have been Northampton's case, 24 hours apart, they're going to be very weak. And yeah, so it's not too beneficial. I think you're right, but I certainly think it's a serious honour for some of these. I mean, I did manage to have a very, very brief chat before the game with Charlie Reynolds-West, who's just come out of the under-18s and played 15-20 minutes or so on the wing, and I think he makes Harry Randall looks like a 6'6", 20-stone rugby player. He's tiny. He's a little schoolboy, bless him, but obviously made his day, and he'll be better for that experience. They are all training with the senior squad during the week normally as well, so they're definitely getting something out of it. But I do agree with you that perhaps them being mixed in some way is better than it, like you say, being an out-and-out academy game. Barry, do you have any thoughts? Or
yeah, so the real difficulty here is that we've got rid of the A-League now. So these guys do not get that many games. They don't get the chance to work together as a team and play as a team. And yeah, I mean, if there was an A-League or an expanded cup, you would probably be able to get some more of the experienced players in there, and you would probably get more of a team feel. And I think that they and the clubs would benefit from it. But at the moment, these games almost feel like they're just sort of put in there just to just to fill the fixture list up a little bit, and it does seem a bit like an afterthought, and it probably deserves a little bit more care and attention, if you like, to developing a proper pathway for these guys. There has to be something in between academy and first team. And I don't think this is it at the moment.
And thinking as well, we're talking about finances. I mean, how much did it cost Quins to put on that game on that Wednesday night? They would have lost money putting on that game because, less people turn up because they know that it isn't going to be the level of rugby that they would get on a Saturday afternoon. So I think there's something to think about there, that the RFU, the Premier Rugby, they need to think about this competition a little bit more, because we're all concerned about the finances of various clubs. Well, why are we forcing clubs to be involved in a competition that may actually end up losing them quite a bit of cash over the course of the year, when we're at the moment, we're all concerned that clubs are losing too much cash already. So I think there's a wider sort of conversation to be had there as well. And I really love to see this competition restructured. I remember my first trip to Twickenham was to see Saracens beat Wasps in the Tetley's Bitter Cup. It was an amazing occasion. It was an incredible achievement. Winning the Premiership Cup, it does not have that feel anymore, and I think that's a real shame.
No, I think you're right. It is quite fun that we're sort of talking about this with a load of one year above under 18s turning up, whereas a few weeks ago it was about like the entire Saracens first team turning up at Northampton on a Thursday, Friday night against all of their kids. So the cup is a bit of a strange situation. We've got another cup fixture coming up on the day that this show goes out. I'd imagine it's probably going to be a very similar team. It's worth saying actually that some of the older younger players, if that's the right way of putting it, some that have been in the academy for a little while or have just stepped up to the senior team, they're all on dual reg and things with teams like Ampthill, Old Albanian, so they are playing Championship or League One level rugby outside of the cup fixtures for Saracens. So, they're getting a good standard, but they're also getting that coaching from Saracens and experience of a Saracens match day. And I would imagine that the Prem Cup match days are being treated in exactly the same way by the coaching staff as a league match. So hopefully they're getting something out of it anyway. But we did lose that game. We've got Saints in the week. We'll see how that one goes. But enough on that bit for a minute. We've delayed long enough talking about the good bit. So we'll come back after a word from the SSA and we'll have a bit of a chat about the Leicester game.
You are listening to the Fezcast, which is proudly sponsored by the Saracen Supporters Association, and I'm Alison Davis, one of the SSA committee. For a £10 annual subscription, the SSA provides our members with monthly newsletters, virtual and in-person player events, away match ticket allocations, and we organise pre-match gatherings at away matches. We sponsor men's and women's players, and we support the Saracens Foundation Track Club on behalf of our members. On top of all that, every year we have a seasonal SSA badge, which is exclusive to members. Where else can you get that much value for a tenner? Join now at membermojo.co.uk/SSA, or come and see us on match day in the Oasis at the Stonex.
This is the Fezcast.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Fezcast for this week, and with 3 very happy people after the weekend putting 50 points on the champions. You can't really say that very often. I'm going to shut up for a minute because I keep talking too much. Sam, what were your thoughts on the game at the weekend?
I woke up on the Saturday morning and I won't lie, I was very nervous. I thought the Leicester team looked very good, particularly the bench. And there was that moment in the second half when I think they brought on Ashton Van Porfleet and Dan Coles, and that just shows you the strength that they had on that bench. So the thought of winning the game was as positive as I think I was thinking. To win it with a bonus point would have been, incredible. To stick 51 points on Leicester was almost unbelievable. And it wasn't just that; it was the manner in which we did it. We demolished them. Basically, they had a sort of a purple patch in the first 10 minutes of each half where they scored their points. But really, apart from that, we were showcasing some of the best rugby you're going to see. And you can start to see now that we're starting to win over some plaudits that previously would have, they put us down as boring Saracens. We just kick it and it's all about defence. And now we're throwing it around like we're playing sevens, and just from 1 to 15 and beyond. I can't think of one player at the weekend that didn't play at least a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10. Everyone played a role, and everyone was part of that win. Full squad effort, and fair play to the coaches for giving us this brand of rugby to watch, because bloody hell, it's great to watch, isn't it?
Take it you enjoyed it as well, Barry.
Yeah, 51 points, and we also had a try chalked off by the TMO. Let's not forget that. So it could have been even bigger margin. But yeah, it's great. We've said this going back. We saw signs of it last season. When we are hot, we are very, very hot, and there's very few sides, certainly in England, that are going to live with us. Whether we can maintain that streak or not is another matter. But hey, after 3 games, we're top of the table.
It's quite weird. Top of the table with a game in hand over most teams as well, which is doing pretty well. But yeah, I mean, from my vantage point in the South Stand, I mean, sometimes watching us chucking the ball around inside our own 22, I nearly hid inside my own shirt a couple of times. And there will be times when we do look really silly, as we did against Harlequins, almost scoring an own goal at one point. And it, sometimes it's not going to come off, but it's going to look good while we're doing it, isn't it? So, yeah, there's a lot to say about that performance as a whole. As you mentioned it, let's talk about that try that was disallowed. It was up the other end to me, but we did have have it on the screens. For me, Tommy Reffel, I believe it was. I think that was another case of football creeping into rugby. I think there's a little tiny nudge, I think, from Ben Earl, or at least he had his arm up with 3 players jostling for the ball that's in the air going over the try line. And the classic footballer's dive, arms went up, hit the deck, and Ben Earl caught the ball, dotted it down for a try. And we've seen them given 9 times out of 10. Sam, you saw it. You think the same as me, or?
Well, do you know what? What I was saying was actually that if you took Ben Earl away from that situation, I think Rafael was falling already. I think him and Malins had sort of clashed, and he was falling already. To take Ben Earl out of that equation is a penalty try, because Rafael stopped Malins from being able to get back and get hold of that try. Because the whole point of a penalty try, as you say, if that player was removed that's done the infringement, would the other player score a try? And the answer is potentially yes, or there's a very, very high chance of it. So it's actually potentially a penalty try if you take Ben Earl out of the equation. And I don't think there was enough in it for it to be seen as a foul. The other end, you then look at the other end when Leicester turn it around, and you've got a very, very similar situation where Billy Vunapola's arm has been completely taken away off the ball to stop him from being able to catch the ball, the kick that had gone through from Burns. I can't remember who it was that scored the try for Leicester. Runs through completely unopposed as a result. It's about consistency. If you're going to disallow one, you disallow both, or you allow both to stand. And I think that's what it was. However, I have to say, we're moaning about a try when we've just put 51 points on Leicester.
I was just about to butt in there and say, we're whinging about a 14-point swing when we've won by 30, so it really doesn't matter too much, does it? But yeah, the performance as a whole, absolutely fantastic. But there's probably 4 or 5 players that stand out in that as well. And I need to make a confession. I've spoken on the Fezcast a few times. Jez, because he's not here, I can say he would love to lick the boots of Theo McFarland, and worships the ground that he walked on. I have said a few times that he is going to be a fantastic player, but I am yet to see him turn up in a big game. Was very absent in the final. He's been very absent in other matches as well, and he's normally doing well when we're already on top. That said, this weekend he was absolutely outstanding. I mean, Barry, you've watched every highlight there possibly is, and I'm pretty sure he probably turns up in most of them.
He certainly did, and even Austin and Lawrence were going on about him on BT Sport today. They were saying how good he is, how strong he is in the air, and they were explaining how it was Ben Kay, wasn't it? It wasn't Delalio. He was explaining how physically strong he is in the air to actually do some of the stuff he does, and one of his catches which they did show in the highlights. He actually caught it behind his head. The ball had gone over the top of him from the line out, and he couldn't have actually leant back and done it, because otherwise he'd have tipped himself over and landed on his back or his head or worse. But he caught the ball one-handed that he couldn't see. He just knew where it was going to be, then looked to see where he was passing it to, and then offloaded it. I mean, that's something you can't teach. That's just pure skill. That is what it comes down to. When he really does, another 2 seasons, he's going to be an absolutely world-class player.
I'm glad you brought up that line out, Barry, because that's what I was going to talk about. I don't think I've ever seen a better catch at a line out, ever. There's just that was like freak of nature stuff. You're right. He just plucked it out the air like it was just sort of just sitting there on a shelf. That it wasn't even in flight. It was absolutely phenomenal. And actually, do you know what? We did any team in the world would miss Itoje. But I think there's a few things that are quite Itoje-esque about him in terms of the positions he gets himself into. And I think he almost filled that void in terms of the, trying to track the nines when they're doing the box kicks. There was a couple on Saturday that must have been millimeters away from, with Youngs and his incredibly slow box kicking. You're right, Barry. He's not quite there, which is actually scary, because at the moment you'd put him in most Premiership sides right now, within the squad at the very least. So the fact that he's potentially 50% of the player that he could be once he, learns more and just gets more experience is very, very scary for opposition teams, not us. It's very exciting for us.
Yeah, and he picked up man of the match at the weekend. I think he's probably, for Saracens themselves, probably their player of the match. But there's a couple of people actually. I thought someone else was deserving of man of the match, and a couple of other players that really stood out as well. But I'm going to stay quiet on those just yet, and I'm going to ask you guys, whoever wants to go first, if there's anyone that did stand out as well for you, or whether I'm being a bit one-eyed about someone. Sam's got his hand. Here we go.
I'm hopeful that we have the same opinion, because I was sitting there with 5 minutes to go, and I said, McFarlane's been amazing, but for me, Elliot Daly was head and shoulders. Absolutely head and shoulders. That man this season, I don't know what he ate over the summer, but he's having so far, I know three games in, but he's having the season of his life. Playing in a position that I don't think is his best position. His lines of running, his reading of the game, his kicking's got even better. He's stronger, he's faster. He's just phenomenal. And at the moment, probably in the top 3 or 4 form players in the Premiership. It looks as though we're going to have him all year, because for whatever reason, Eddie Jones isn't looking at him anymore. But yeah, I thought he was the best player on the pitch. McFarlane was great, really great. And I think there was a couple of others. I think Van Zyl had a very, very good game as well. But for me, Daly was just head and shoulders above everyone else. Not McFarlane in height-wise, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Elliot's try, he had no right to score that try. He got around 2 players and managed to get it down the corner it was literally no room to do that. It's been several tries across the Premiership this weekend that you could say they've got no right to score, but that was certainly one of them. I'm pleased to see Van Zyl doing well. I've always liked him because I like a 9 who gets there quickly, and he looks like he gets there quickly. He looks like he wants to put pace on the ball every time he picked it up. He looks like he wants to get us going all the time from the back of the ruck, and I'm really pleased to see him. I hope he kicks on this season, but certainly he's had a decent start to the season, and long may it continue. And of course, Owen Farrell is just Owen Farrell. I mean, everyone talks about Marcus Smith, but Owen Farrell is the best 10 in the league at the moment.
I completely agree with that. And I think number one for Van Zyl, not only does he get there quickly, which is great to see, because as you say, he's intending to speed the game up and keep the high tempo. But when he is there, he whips that ball away so quickly. Is there a 9 in the Premiership that can pass the ball as quickly as him? I'm not sure. He gets that ball away with intent very, very, very quickly. And I think, he's coming on leaps and bounds. And as you say, Faz, what can you say? Another couple of kicks from the touchline, which you just shake your head sometimes. He gets hold of the ball. It pretty much goes to whoever it needs to go to every single time, whether it's out of his hands or off his feet. He reads the game better than anyone in the world. and he should be nailed on to play 10 for England. And the fact that he isn't and the fact that there are still people out there that think Marcus Smith should be is just silly, really, isn't it? I mean, he's head and shoulders above. I know I keep using that phrase. He's so much better than Smith at the moment. So much better. Do you see earlier on, Marcus Smith tried his goose step and just ran straight into a player? That's a guy that's been found out. And Farrell got found out, and then he changed his game. Got found out again, changed his name, changed his game, and he's just, again, this season he's throwing the ball around even more. He's going to the line. He's attacking better than he ever has done. He's reinvented himself again at 30, 31 years old. Cracking player, should be nailed on to play for England and should be captain again.
Yeah, I can't really argue with too much of that. I mean, I do like Marcus Smith, and I think he will be I think he's probably the future. In a couple of years' time, he'll be nailed on for the England 10 shirt. But at the moment, if you pick it on form, it has to be Farrell.
Well, somebody said to me at the game on Saturday, actually, you're in the final of the World Cup, and you're picking your team. Who are you picking to play at 10? You're picking Farrell, because you need somebody that has that ability to we were talking about McFarlane not necessarily showing up in big games. Farrell's a big game player, and if you need someone to nail a kick in the last minute to secure your World Cup, there's very few names that would come higher up than Owen Farrell on a list of players that you'd want to do that. So for me, if you're looking at that and you're Eddie Jones and you're looking at the World Cup, surely you want a settled team. And for me, you go, well, Farrell's my man at 10. Let's just get back to that and work the team back around him. Because again, yesterday, I'm trying to think if he made a mistake yesterday, and I can't remember him making any mistake in anything he did.
No, I think you're probably right. And you have picked up on pretty much every player that I was going to say that had a good game. I mean, rewinding back to Elliot Daly, I mean, I'm always the one to pick up on a little bit of a worry. He is having a fantastic season, and I know plenty of us will say this as well. Daly had a fantastic game at the weekend, but again, everything was front football. He had all the space to play with. He wasn't under too much pressure. I think if we are in a game where we are a little bit more backs against the wall and he's under pressure, maybe from a high ball or a lot of ball being driven towards him, I'm not sure he's the best fullback, which is something that we've spoken about quite a lot. But given the way that we're playing, he is a perfect person to have at 15. Very similar for Van Zyl as well. I thought actually that was his best game in a Saracens shirt, full stop. And yeah, totally with you. He's absolutely rapid getting the ball out. One thing, myself and my dad sitting in the stands, we've always had a massive problem with scrum halves who take 2 or 3 steps before they pass the ball. And Ben Youngs is the worst example of that. And actually, my dad said Van Zyl was doing it at the weekend, but then we realised, because we're sitting down the pitch, we didn't notice it, but Van Zyl is taking 2 or 3 steps, but he's actually taking them forwards. So he's already getting towards the gain line before he's making that pass, and he's doing it in under a second, rather than Ben Young sort of having to take a run up to throw a loopy pass to his fly half. It's such a different way of playing. But the problem with Van Zyl, again, is his box kicking is pretty crap. So, again, in a defensive game, little bit worried. But if we're going to play like we did at the weekend, then that's not really a problem, is it?
No, it's to use the football analogy, it's almost the Kevin Keegan school of thought, isn't it? It doesn't matter if we concede points, we'll just score more than you.
I tend to agree, because actually I think that the previous thought process at Saracens was actually the opposite. Was we're going to make sure we concede less than you. So that's basically, I think, how Saracens used to play, and we have turned it around, which is great to watch, but it will invariably mean we ship a few more points than we normally would do. But then I do agree with you, Matt, about kind of how you think about when we are under the pump a little bit. But if we were going to come under the pump, it would have been yesterday. And actually we manufactured not being under the pump because we played so well, and that was down to us. And actually I was watching Rugby Tonight this evening, and they had Dylan Armitage as the guest talking about Toulon. He should never be on TV again. That guy just carries on talking when he should stop. But he was talking about the mentality at Toulon that they had, where they wouldn't really worry too much about who they were playing at the weekend, because they knew that they were good enough to play their own game and win. And I think that seems to be a bit of a Saracens mentality at the moment. We're playing Leicester at home, the champions. They did us over last year. twice. We just went out and played our own game. We could have been playing, Hadley second team yesterday, and I think we would have gone out with the same mentality. And I think that's what it is at the moment. As you say, though, it's all well and good on a plastic pitch, as Marla would call it. And there are plenty of teams that do have the plastic pitches now. So maybe we are thinking, actually, we can be a bit more expansive because there's more teams that are going to have those type of pitches. But, what happens if we're, playing in the pouring rain down at the Rec and various other places where we can't necessarily play barbarian style rugby? I'm certain that we have a plan B. I'm certain that we have other styles, and we're just taking advantage of the good weather, the plastic pitches, and having all of our players fit and healthy, and well, most of them anyway, and not playing for England at the moment. But we've got to, at some point, we will have to probably play in a slightly different way, and I'm sure we'll put the right players in the right positions at that point to do so.
Well, we have seen what happens when we play at the Rec and the weather's not great. We actually score 70. So, but no, definitely point taken. We'll see what happens. And to be honest, I'm interested to see what happens when we come up against some big teams in Europe as well. I think that is a different kettle of fish. But I think we will just back ourselves to play our game. If it doesn't work, we're wheeling out the Jez mantra again. Do we have a plan B? Generally, we do. I don't think we did in the Premiership final, but I think we were just beaten by the better team on the day then. But yeah, not really much else we can say about that, other than to say there are a few other players that I think had a good game. One of which is Ben Earl, who I think the fact that we've not mentioned him yet shows just how well he's been playing over the course of the last season or so, because that was just Ben Earl. He didn't have a better game than he normally does, so we didn't mention it. He's just playing at a consistently high level. Jamie George as well, I think, playing very well. And he's someone that I'm going to turn around and say I think he's in the twilight of his career now. I don't think he's the world-beating number 2 that he was, but played pretty well, pretty consistently, and ran a line that Elliot Daly would be proud of for Max Malin's try. And the one minor negative from the match was that actually, certainly in the first half, the penalty count was far too high. I think we got 2, they got 9 or 10. But we still managed to go in 10 points clear and then blew them away in the second half. But, that's the frightening thing. We bring that penalty count down and we take our chances. We put in 80 or 90 past a team in the league this season.
When do we play Bath again?
On that note, I think we've done everything we can. We've spoken with glee about our victory over the champions. We'll come back in a second and just and wrap up what's happening over the next few weeks.
Hi guys, I'm Alex Linton and I'm a proud Looseheads ambassador.
I'm Sydney Gregson and I'm a Looseheads ambassador.
We're a rugby mental health charity working to tackle the stigma. You can find us at Looseheads on all social media channels or at looseheads.co.uk.
The Looseheads mission is to place a mental health lead at every rugby club. Get in touch now to find out more. Take care and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Enjoy the rest of the pod.
This is the Fezcast.
Welcome back to the Fezcast. It's a shame we only do this in audio because the three of us keep grinning at each other because this is quite fun. Like I said, not often you can talk about a 50-point win against the champions and actually be disappointed with some of it, but there we go. One thing we do need to address is some of the paper talk from the last week or so, and the pretty strong rumour that Max Malins may be going off to Bristol at the end of the season. He is one of several players that are out of contract currently at the end of the season, so I'm sure there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with a lot of people. But it is a story that seems to have some legs. Various reasons why Max could stay, various reasons why he could go. Barry, any particular thoughts on either way on what you'd like to... I mean, I was going to say what you'd like to see happen. Of course you want Max to stay, but there's a big picture out there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a reduced salary cap. We've got to try and juggle all these world-class players we keep talking about them. I mean, if we talk too much about them, they want a pay rise, won't they? And we'll be having to cough up even more money for them. But there's a lot of reasons Max might go, as you say. I find the idea that he'll be allowed to play at fullback a slightly strange one. I mean, I'm not too sure I'd be off to Bristol just on the basis of wearing a slightly different numbered shirt, but there we go. There's lots we don't know. We hope he stays, but if he goes, obviously he'll go with our best wishes. We'll keep an eye on him, and we will have a plan. Nick Kennedy will be working in the background, whether he stays or goes. They'll be lining up someone else if he has indicated to the club that he's not going to sign again. I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it'll be sad to see Max go. He's come through the academy. He's a Saracens boy, and we never like to see those types of players go. But I think you're right, Barry, in terms of, is he actually going to get that number 15 shirt? Don't forget they've got Charles Piutau down there who pretty much has that shirt nailed onto him. Although on the flip side of that, it's come out recently he's the most highest paid player in the Premiership. So can they actually afford to keep him at £1 million? Probably not. So maybe he's on his way, and they see Max as the natural successor because he's already been down there. What makes me laugh is the fact that it sounds as though the reason is positional, that he wants to play more games at fullback. It was Bristol that first stuck him on the wing. So before that, he was a 10, and we occasionally played him at 15. So actually, he's going to the place which made him a winger in the first place. Obviously, Daly's playing very, very well. We have got Good to still come on and play 15, although, how much has he got left in him? Who knows? But I have heard a little bit of a counter rumour that maybe we're not as bothered about him going. Obviously, we are bothered, but the fact that we might be looking at lining up Radwan from Newcastle as a wing replacement, which I could see both of those things happening. And then suddenly we've replaced a very good winger, albeit probably a fullback converted to winger, with an out-and-out speedster on the wing, which is not something we've had for quite some time. Although Maitland was desperately trying to show off that he was still quick on the end of the game on Saturday. But as a straight swap, there is an element that makes a bit of sense, although you lose that utility player-esque nature of having Maitland's. So I don't know. I could see it happening. But on the flip side, I could see it not.
Yeah, kind of go back to what we were talking about with Worcester, really. There'll be so much more going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. The simple fact of the matter, if Max has asked for 1.5 million over the next few years, then he's probably leaving with, he's probably been kicked out the door, really. So you don't know what's going on. We've got the likes of Elliott in the position at the moment. He might be happy. It could all come down to money, let's face it. Equally, there's lots of reasons why players do want to move on for another challenge. People do leave successful teams and go to other ones and try something else. There's not many people that have left Saracens and gone on to much success, it has to be said, over the last few years. But there's lots of reasons why you wouldn't begrudge Max Maitland's a move down to Bristol. That said, this comes from the same paper and the same journalist that told us that Mako and Billy Vunipola were both going down there at some point, or going to Bath or wherever it was, and look what happened there. So it's silly season. Like you say, Sam, we've heard rumours about Adam Radwan. I've also heard Tom Parton from London Irish is a potential fullback as well, who I don't think we would shake our heads at particularly. So players move on, things change, salary cap's coming down, lots of contracts are up for renewal. There's going to be some churn. And I think we will have to lose at least one player that we don't want to this season, and that's just a fact of how it works. If it's Max, disappointing, but there's probably worse players we could lose. But yeah, we'll just have to see. It's silly season. He could sign a 5-year deal tomorrow. We never know.
Yeah, can you imagine that?
It is odd, though. We're only 3 or 4 games into the season. We're already talking about who's re-signing and who's disappearing off next season across all the clubs. It's odd. I know they can't announce anything officially until, is it January the 1st, I think?
I think so, yeah.
But it does seem strange to be this shallow into a new season and already talking about the next one.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, it probably comes from the fact that there's so many players that signed those pre-COVID deals that counted less towards a salary cap. There's probably a lot more negotiation that needs to go on across a wider squad than there normally is. I think 2023 is a very big year for a lot of clubs' players, so it probably does have to start a lot earlier than normal and be in a bit more of a rush than normal. So yeah, we could see all sorts going on, and not just for Saracens, but yeah. We'll have to wait and see. We don't really bring you many rumours on the Fezcast because that's not what we're about. We'll talk about things when they happen, but it is something that we wanted to address because there's a lot of people talking about that as being the end of the world. But there's only so much you can do, isn't there?
Yeah.
But yeah, that is pretty much it. What we should do is just have a look ahead to the next few weeks because rugby is coming thick and fast now. Barry, you mentioned about when we're playing Bath. We're actually playing them in 2 weeks' time. Which could be fun. Well, we've got Newcastle away and then Bath at home in the league with cup fixtures around that. So, having played Quins, Gloucester, and Leicester, I don't want to disrespect other clubs, but we've had 3 big challenges from those teams and seen them off in close but exciting games and then blown the champions away. Bath and Newcastle are different entities. Would you like to see any kind of rotation in the teams over the next couple of weeks just to give a few people a rest, or is it while we've got the foot down, let's keep it down?
I suspect there's got to be some payback for the international players that we've had on them. There must be some agreement or plan put in place that limits the minutes or the weeks or whatever games they can play. So I suspect there will be some rotation. I've got to say Newcastle looked very good in dispatching Bristol on Friday night, albeit Bristol developed Teflon hands by the looks of it because they kept dropping the ball an awful lot, particularly Sinclair, who looked like he couldn't catch a cold, to be quite honest with you. But they will be a challenge up there. They've just got 3 Argentinians back, I think, from the Rugby Championship, haven't they? And they, I mean, one of them, you think Radwan's quick. You want to see the fella on the other side. He is rapid. you want a motorbike to be catching him up. But I'm sure there will be some rotation on that. Bath at home, well, Bath at some point have got to catch a break. I mean, I do actually, for all my joking about them, I think they're a wonderful place to visit, a great rugby city, and a great bunch of supporters. But you've got to feel for them. Scoring 6 tries away from home and still not coming up with anything is just got to be quite a rarity in rugby. And at some point, they're going to catch a result, and I'm sure they'll turn it around. They've got a good coach there and some good players. So we will have to bring our best game against both those sides, and I'm sure we will. But there will almost certainly be some rotation. I mean, you mentioned Jamie George earlier. I think he picked up an injury yesterday, didn't he? He came off just after half time and was apparently walking around in I think they call it a moon boot, those inflatable things afterwards. So we hope he's not out for too long. And Wolfie picked up a knock in training, I believe, which is why he was missing yesterday. So we hope both of those are back competing soon. Because let's face it, we've only really got 3 hookers.
Yeah, I think. Well, you look at last season. I know teams change and stuff, but Newcastle, both home and away, which I managed to get to both of them, that they played very, very well against us, and actually gave us a real scare at our place early on last season. And again, I think they were ahead up at their place as well, and we sort of came back late in the day to win that one. So Newcastle is not an easy place to go, as we saw on Friday. Anyone can beat anyone in this division right now. And Newcastle proving that point. So we are going to have to bring our A game for that game. I hope we don't rest too many players. I hope we do just kick on and keep the foot down. Bath, you'd expect maybe we have to start rotating a few. But yeah, again, I just think, like you say, Barry, Bath are going to catch a break at some point. They're not as bad as them being bottom of the league suggests, in my opinion. I think they've been close to results, and I think they're almost there. So we're still going to have to play at the high level of intensity that we've become used to so far this season, and keep plugging away. Two games that could be potential banana skins, and it will be really, frustrating to go on this winning streak that we've done against three of the top sides in the division, and then muck it up against Bath or Newcastle. So, for me, we keep the foot down. We keep playing the way we're playing. We're playing on another plastic pitch on Sunday, so we can zip the ball around again. And I hope for more of the same, to be honest. Just keep the foot down, keep playing the level of intensity in the manner in which we're doing it, and just keep plugging away, because we're going to be losing players during the autumn internationals. So why not use them as often as we possibly can until that point?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. Different types of game coming up, but Mark McCall's always been very good at just bringing in 3 or 4 players, just rotating teams around, giving people a break when they need one. We might see a few people drop out. We've also got a few players coming back from injury as well. Good, Maitland, Richie Oney, not had any minutes yet this season, that might find themselves getting a start in the next week or two. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what happens on Sunday. And everything else we've got coming up, we've got the Rugby World Cup as well, the Women's World Cup. England starting off against Fiji on Saturday, and I think it's about 4:45 in the morning, the kick-off for that. So alarms on or Skybox on record for ITV. I think that's a serious vat of coffee I think I'd need for that one, but I'll definitely be catching up with it. So there'll be plenty of Saracens players involved in that, and Rachel Lekera-Tabura, who's been picked in the Fiji squad for the World Cup as well. So best of luck to her. But yeah, that over the next few weeks we'll bring you a bit of reaction from that as well, when one of us can drag ourselves out of bed to watch an early morning game in New Zealand. But we should probably leave it there, because I think I'm about to be drowned out by the sound of my own washing machine, and Sam has descended into pitch black darkness. So it's probably
the sun's gone down.
Have you seen the price of electricity since the 1st of October? I can't turn the lights on now. You can have the computer on all the lights. You can't have both.
That's fair enough. But we've had a good time and a good laugh because we keep winning, which is good. But from me, Sam, and Barry, thank you very much for listening, everyone. We'll be back again next week. But yeah, thanks, Barry. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks.
Cheers.
See you soon.
This is the Fezcast.